ahead and screw these 632 thread stocks that are just going to get lost if they're not stuck in there. But of course they would thread in further by the time we were done. Okay, so at this point what we need to build next, because we've got the walking, we've got the arms moving, is we need to build the two switches. The one little switch that's going to sit on this side for flashing the grill light and alternately flashing the eyes, and a switch that will stick over here to run the beeper, the horn, excuse me, once every walk cycle. So let me try to dig up the materials for that. There is a piece of prep work that's done to the horn. I'll cut these slots in it here to let the sound out. The outside of the case of the horn is one of its connections, and this wire is its other. So we have to isolate this horn from the metal case, otherwise it would be beeping all the time. So we'll probably take a little scrap of plastic. It won't be anything special. It could even be, well, plastic would be better than poster board, because poster board might eventually separate, you know, from moisture or something. But basically I'll lay a rim of goop around here and just glue a piece of plastic to it. That way in the end, when we get ready to stick the horn in the robot, we can glue to the plastic, making sure the horn isn't touching anything metal in there. Here's one, for example, that is already glued together and ready to go. We'll also need to sand and clean a spot on the side where we can solder a wire so that we can make a good connection on the horn. There's the four little brass pieces, and these are some, again, just poster board. They're basically going to be 1-inch squares that fold in the middle with cutouts that actually be the same, just fold them in opposites. But that's going to make an insulator for the brass strip, because we don't want it touching the robot body. We actually bend a little piece up. This is a little piece that we're going to solder to later for our connection. If we bring that into the cut-in area, there's a reason for that. Oh, if I can, I can't even put it back. There we go. Anyway, we would put goop glue on all sides there, bring the thing in, slam it shut, maybe put a clothespin on it or set a battery on it or something. Anyway, let that dry so that you've got your insulated part, and make your other one. It's going to be just the opposite of it. So I decided probably just to make the switches with an extra piece. So we're going to take another piece of the brass and glue it right to the bottom. Let it stick out past that end. That way we can solder it as our frame ground, if you will, and solder to that one as our switch wire, see? And when this is actually all assembled, this upper one, we bend up a little, bend back a little, and then out on the end, bend down a little, like that. The idea being that as those fingers come around on that cam, they're going to push the two together, see? It's a very simple switch, very reliable. But we'll make two of those, and then we'll glue them, slide them back in place. So let me goop one of these up. Not that you really need to see it, because I'm sure you should know how to glue stuff by now. But it's got to be done, so I might as well just do it. Take that, slip that, close it up. There's one. Like say if you got some clothespins laying around, I always do. Just clothespin it and let that thing dry. Then we'll make our other one. Slap some goop on it. Grab a piece of brass, let a little stick out the back. When you come around to the side, then you can take that piece and bend it up as where you're going to solder. Like that. Another clothespin. We can let those dry up a little bit. Then once they do, we'll put a little bit of goop on the back and glue the one that it's going to contact right onto the back of it. Then we'll basically have our whole switch assembly. As soon as they'll set up a little bit, I'll do that so you can see. While we're waiting for the switches to dry, I can show you a little bit more on the arm assembly. For example, inside the bellows, because they're not really meant to be load supporting, we're going to put in this piece of wood dowel. I do cut these and drill the hole through the center of them on the lathe. And basically the wood dowel fits in there, and the whole thing slides on that 632, and then of course the claw screws onto the threads. But to keep this from pushing around and moving around on the claw, what I've found the best thing to do is to take like some PVC electrical tape, because this wood dowel is a little bit sloppy up here at the end where it's going to show. And take the tape and put 2, sometimes 3 layers of tape around there. And then I take the goop glue and put goop all over that black tape. And I take the whole thing from the back side and turn it, because it's going to fit tighter now. And when it gets down near that end, I just set it on something. You wouldn't want to set anything good, piece of wax paper, a plastic bag, you know. Set it on something and just push on the dowel and wiggle that, and just leave it that way to dry. That way when it's dry, the dowel is going to be flush right with the top of the bellows. It's going to be real easy for you to paint, to spray paint the bellows or paint the wood to match the bellows or whatever you want to do. But at least then they're all one. So when it's on there, it looks good, and it isn't going to be sliding around or acting funny on you or anything like that. Okay? Another little motor interlude. I'll run it on 3 volts. So maybe you can really see what's going on. See how every time that cam comes down, it could push on the switch, beep, beep. And over here on this side, we've got 3 lobes. It could be flash, 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 flash. See how all that stuff works. And if those posts weren't centered up on the leg, that's when you would loosen that screw on that drive axle and shift it one way or the other till everything is centered in the foot. As far as the slip joints go, I haven't got these actually glued on, so it wouldn't work, but basically you can just take this and you won't break the linkage, because the screw should slip in that joint. Now that we have this assembly, we can put glue on this one so it'll stick to the back, and glue on that cardboard. And we're going to work this whole piece in where it's basically centered. The center part of this will be centered with that drive shaft, where the white crank can come down and hit it. We don't really care where it hits it, as long as it's bent, it'll push it. This is super thin stuff. It'll push really, really easy. And maybe I can just fit one in here by hand and give you a rough idea where it's got to lay. And okay, what will the camera show? That's the real question. If I hold it like that, can you see anything? I've got the paper right up against those 2 screws that come through the back, if you can catch that. And that'll have that switch centered good, so that when the cam comes around, it'll push down on it, and everything's still isolated. Of course, we don't care if the back one's isolated. It's just making up for the fact that normally there'll be paint on that metal. So when we go to use the switch, we can solder here and we can solder here to make our connections. We're going to do exactly the same thing over here. These 2 screws are basically your landmarks, where we'll push the cardboard right up against those and get the switch up into that area. See if you can actually see the switch closing and opening, maybe, depending on where the camera looks. See how it pushes on it, see? Every time that one hits, that'll be the chest light flashing, and every time it's not on it, the eyes will be lit. And this one over here, every time it hits it, will be a beep.